Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving right into something that is absolutely crucial for enterprise tech right now, modern application development services. Look, if you're a business leader, a CTO, or any kind of decision maker, you are definitely feeling that intense pressure for speed, scale, and agility in today's market. But here's the catch. Too often, organizations are just completely bogged down by the very systems that were supposed to push them forward. So today, we're going to explore how to finally shift away from those legacy bottlenecks and move toward cutting-edge modern application architectures.
80%. Yep, you heard that right. According to industry data, a massive 80% of enterprise IT budgets are just drained purely by legacy system maintenance. That means the vast majority of your resources might be spent just.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the legacy bottleneck, defining modern application development, some real-world success stories, the modernization process, and finally, those key business benefits.
All right, Section 1, the legacy bottleneck. Let's look at why this is such a costly liability. $337 million. That is the staggering annual cost of operating and maintaining legacy systems across the industry. Honestly, it's a massive wake-up call. These older systems are fundamentally incompatible with modern tech, like AI, IoT, and cloud-native architectures. And to make matters worse, the talent pool that's actually skilled enough to maintain these massive older codebases, it's shrinking. So the cost just to maintain the status quo is literally only going to skyrocket from here. The core issue here is that legacy applications are monolithic. They're rigid. Think of them like a giant, slow-moving cargo ship. If one single part breaks, the entire system is at risk. They rely on manual testing and waterfall development, which just makes them incredibly expensive and sluggish. But modern applications? They're built using microservices. These are small, independent pieces of code deployed in portable containers. So instead of a slow cargo ship, they act more like a fleet of nimble, high-speed drones. They're highly agile. They use continuous integration and continuous deployment, or CI/CD, to automate testing, and they usually run on a highly efficient pay-per-use cloud model. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, defining modern application development. Let's strip away the jargon for a minute. Okay, we really need to understand this foundational concept, serverless computing. This is a cloud execution model where your cloud provider dynamically handles the allocation and provisioning of servers. Now, a really common misconception is that serverless means there are literally zero servers. That's not true. The servers are definitely still there in the cloud, but the game changer is that your developers don't have to manage them anymore. The provider handles all the scaling, the patching, and the capacity planning. That lifts a massive operational burden right off your team's shoulders, letting them focus purely on writing brilliant business logic. And the absolute bedrock of the serverless framework is Function as a Service, or FaaS. FaaS lets you execute small, stateless bits of code, which we just call functions, in response to specific events. Imagine a tiny piece of code that literally just sleeps, completely dormant, until a user clicks a button, or a database is updated, or maybe a file gets uploaded. It wakes up, runs its specific task in mere milliseconds, and then, boom, goes right back to sleep. You aren't paying for 24/7 server uptime anymore. You only pay for the exact compute time those functions actually use. Let's look at the proof. Section 3, Real-World Success Stories. First up, let's talk about the modernization of Capital One. Back in 2020, they closed their very last physical data center and went all in on the cloud. By adopting serverless tech like AWS Lambda, they completely revolutionized their infrastructure. For some applications, they saw up to 90% cost savings. 90%. And not only did they drastically cut costs, but they saved thousands of hours of developer time. By ditching those infrastructure bottlenecks, their engineering teams went from deploying code in weeks or months to pushing out brand new working applications in mere days. And hey, they're not alone. We're seeing this everywhere. Think Stripe pioneering API-first architectures, Discord leveraging a hybrid model tech, or Slack rolling out modern SaaS for their MVP builds. It's a total paradigm shift. Then, of course, there's the cloud-native giant itself, Netflix. They deliver over 10 billion hours of video to customers every single quarter. To handle that kind of mind-boggling load, they use event-driven AWS Lambda functions. The exact second a publisher uploads a video file to an Amazon S3 bucket, it triggers an automated event. The serverless function instantly wakes up, splits that video into 5-minute chunks, and encodes them into 60 different parallel streams. It's incredibly fast, perfectly scalable, and 100% automated. Not a single engineer has to step in to provision a server. But it's not just the digital-first software companies doing this. Traditional retail giants like Walmart are using this for immense enterprise scaling. And look at Coca-Cola. They use serverless technology to completely revolutionize their global network of intelligent vending machines. Before this, they were maintaining constantly running servers just to handle the data trickling in from these machines. That meant massive costs during idle periods, like the middle of the night when nobody was even buying a drink. By moving to serverless, Coca-Cola eliminated those idle server costs entirely. Now, they just pay for the exact milliseconds of compute time their machines actually use when a transaction happens.
So, how do you actually make this happen? Section 4, the modernization process. When you tackle modernization, this 6-step roadmap you're seeing essentially boils down to 4 critical phases. First, you define and design your business value while researching your current tech debt. Second, you build and integrate through really strategic, rapid sprint objectives. Third, you test and harden by iterating in smaller, manageable chunks. No massive, risky rollouts here. And finally, you deploy and scale, constantly validating that these new components actually align with your goals and evolving the system as your business grows. It proves that transitioning away from legacy isn't some reckless leap of faith. It's a highly strategic, totally manageable journey. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Key Business Benefits. Let's talk about the bottom line.
When you lay out traditional setups against serverless frameworks side by side, the financial contrast is honestly night and day. With traditional servers, you're scaling expenses painfully high. You need manual intervention, hardware purchases, and you're always over-provisioning just to survive peak traffic. But with serverless, scaling is automatic, instantaneous, and effortless. Next, look at operational expenses. Traditional models bleed money on routine maintenance, OS patching, and security updates. With serverless, those expenses drop drastically because your cloud provider handles all the heavy lifting. And the biggest one, idle costs. Traditional servers cost you money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether anyone is using them or not. Serverless is purely pay-per-use. Zero traffic means zero compute cost. To sum it all up, modern application development is a massive business accelerator. It gives you unmatched speed to market, letting your teams deploy seamlessly using those CI/CD pipelines. It gives you limitless automatic scaling to absorb any traffic spike without crashing. It drives drastic cost reductions by shifting from rigid capital expenditures to a highly efficient pay-per-use model, and enhances security from the ground up with zero-trust architectures. And ultimately, it creates a pure developer innovation focus. By taking server management off their plates, you finally empower your developers to do what they actually do best: build amazing products.
Which brings us to the end of today's explainer. I want to leave you with one very provocative, vital question to consider. Are your servers driving innovation? Or are they just driving up costs? By modernizing your applications, you really can transform your IT department from a sluggish cost center right into a high-speed growth engine. It is time to evaluate those legacy bottlenecks and spark your own modernization journey. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and keep innovating.